Okay, so I guess we are officially live now. I'm told there are upwards of 100 people here, so hopefully we'll get some questions pretty soon. Basically, I'm going to tell you guys what I can about online dating, how to do it effectively, how to do it efficiently, so that it doesn't waste too much of your time, and sort of a little bit about my own experience, and then I will field whatever questions you guys may have in that area. So my history with online game basically is that I started doing it kind of off and on here and there, I guess as far back as 10 years ago, and I had some success at it. Actually, at first, I had no success. Even as I was getting good with girls, I had no success whatsoever online because it's a bit different. The way that you have to present yourself is a little different. Certain things that work live don't work online. Like, for example, a lot of times self-deprecating humor can be taken too seriously. And a lot of times being dismissive doesn't work online because there's just not enough for them to respond to. So there's some little things there. And also, writing a good profile was at first pretty difficult for me. But I got good at it. And over the years, I've not done it consistently, but I've just come back to it every now and again amidst the coaching and going out and doing live dating, all that kind of stuff. And it's gotten a little bit better every single time, to the point where now, if I want to, I can pretty much book like 3 dates a night with pretty much no effort and outsourcing most of the work. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And I can talk to you guys about the whole range of that experience, from writing a profile to how to message to how to set up the dates properly so you can close, etc. And then also how to make it more efficient, because there are ways to make it really efficient in terms of doing volume, and then there are ways to be really effective in terms of getting the absolute hottest and best girls. And those are two different strategies. So we can talk about both of those. But I kind of want to see what you guys' thoughts are for now. And let me see if I can actually find questions. What do we got here? All right, does anyone have questions right now? Or if not, then I can just go into more of the stuff. I'll talk about everything, but mostly I want to keep it at first on online game because that's the stated topic. But yeah, at the end, if we're done with that topic or we don't have questions in that area, I will talk about any kind of other game as well. And hopefully the way I talk about it will kind of merge all the areas into each other, because really game is game regardless of what the venue is. So that'll be the general idea. Let's see if I can figure out the chat here. Less than a minute ago. Okay, cool. So it goes at the top. Volume, I just want dates. Okay, so if all you want from online game is volume, then what you should do basically is come up with a mass strategy and do as much copy and paste in your strategy as you possibly can. And there's a couple ways to do this. One thing that I've done recently is I outsource my online first messages to a guy in Africa that I pay $3 an hour. And so his job basically is I give him a series of messages and he sends those out copy and paste to the girls. And then at some point, if they go off script, then I will take over from there and handle it and look at it from that point. So that's the absolute most efficient way in terms of time efficiency. And if you're going to do a copy and paste script, the way to do it is, number one, make it something that definitely forces attention, something that's a little polarizing. Maybe even something that's a little offensive that's in their face. In fact, a lot of online game, it's a lot like internet marketing. It's a lot like marketing in general, where the headline matters a lot. You have to get read. First and foremost, almost more important than the content, is just getting them to open your email. Making sure that your profile says something that wants to get read, making sure your headline says something that intrigues their attention, making sure the first line of your email captures their attention. Because if that isn't the case, they won't look at the rest. So that's really, really important. With any of it and with any messages you're sending. But then specifically, if you want to do copy and paste styled messages, what you should do in each message is you should kind of end it with something that's interesting and provokes a question, because most of the time they'll follow the obvious question script and then you can follow up with the next question. So for example, one thing I would say at the end of my messages when I was doing a copy paste strategy was I'd say, do you think you can handle a guy who travels for a living? And so what that would provoke a lot of times is the question, what is your job? What is this job that you travel for a living? What is this job that XYZ? And so because the response was very predictable, I was able then to make the next message very, very predictable as well. And then kind of siphon it along. The other interesting thing with respect to if you're creating a strategy, if you're creating sort of like a funnel through which to message, is you should look at the number of messages that it's going to take to get from start to finish. You don't want to be pressing super, super fast because then you look pushy. But you also don't want to be going so super slow that you become their online best friend, or that you put too much time and effort into some girl that you've never met who probably is going to show up and not even look like her pictures anyway. So you want to be careful about it. You do want to treat the whole thing as a sales funnel. It's very similar to like it's called a CRM, like customer relations manager, I think, that salespeople have, where they have like, these are my prospects, these are the people I've called, these are the people that have called me back, and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter on the funnel. And it really is like putting it through a funnel, especially if you do a mass sort of a methodology. So that would be the way to do mass. And in terms of the number of emails you want to go back and forth before getting a number, honestly, if I'm doing a copy paste, I probably want to be trying to start going for an email on like the second text or the third at the very latest, just because there's very little predictability outside of that. And you've done a good enough job. If you've written a good profile, if they're interested, if they've messaged you, if they've taken the time to get online, especially if it's a paid site, they're definitely invested. They're definitely looking to meet someone. So there shouldn't be too much bullshit. There shouldn't be too much back and forth in the meeting process. It should be something that will just kind of happen. And it's something they should want as well. And they should at least be intrigued about it, right? Don't make the first date something that's so like high commitment that they worry about it, but something that they can just come meet you and no big deal. And that'll be more likely to get them out on the date. So that's how you do the volume strategy, is basically depersonalize it, copy paste, say something intriguing and a little bit compelling or even offensive, and then go from there. One that I used to do, this is from old school pickup game. It's something like you might be more than, something tells me, let's see, you're probably just a big dork, but something tells me you might be more than pretty, so just a pretty face. So I'm curious to get to know you. Who knows, worst case, we might just be friends. And then I'd tack on that line for predictability. Do you think you can handle a guy who travels for a living? Or do you think you can handle a confident guy who travels for a living? Something like that. So it's kind of challenging them. It's kind of putting it out there. It's kind of setting the frame that you are the prize and she's not, and it's getting her attention. And it's also setting her up predictably for that next step in the copy and paste funnel. And again, this strategy won't get you like the absolute hottest girls probably. It'll get you a lot of like 7s and 8s, like cute girls that you'd be, happy with, but not like the absolute hottest. Occasionally, of course, you'll get a 9 or a 10 that just happens to really respond to your profile. But that would be a volume-based strategy. You're also going to get a lot of girls that are giving their numbers to a lot of guys, and when you do get the number, you'll have a hassle getting them out on a date because you haven't had a really personalized interaction with them. So you're going to have to do your work later on. Regardless, with any strategy with a girl, you're going to have to put in a certain amount of time, effort, energy, and really get to know the girl. The question is just, are you putting in that time and energy online, or are you putting it in live? Okay? All right. Let's see. This thing that says paid dating sites, girls will be more invested. Okay, so favorite dating sites. This is just, I'll answer briefly. There are pros and cons, and I'll sort of speak to the characteristics of the dating site more than the particular dating sites. The ones that I'm currently using are Match.com and Okcupid, but I could definitely see myself using other ones. I probably just don't know about them, and there probably are some really good niche sites that I'm not using. Like I know some of my friends have done really well with Tinder, which is a completely different sort of platform. So there's different sort of categories and different criteria for different sites. The things I like about Match.com, for example, is number one, it's a paid site, so the girls that are on it are invested. And so if you're going to put any time into it, at least you're messaging girls that are invested and thinking about potentially writing back, or have decided that they're single enough to be actively looking, as opposed to being kind of so-so or on the fence or just trying it out. So that's one really good thing. The other good thing that Match has is it has a wink feature, which is you can just go through and wink, and just wink at a bunch of girls, show the interest that way without having to copy paste, without having to write a creative message. And then you can see that basically you're only messaging the ones that are somewhat interested in you, as opposed to messaging everybody. So it makes it much more time efficient. And again, if you've written a good profile, and the profile is probably the most important thing online, if you've written a good profile, then you should get a decent amount of interest from the winking. So that's what I really like about Match.com, is the seriousness of the people that are on it, about actually meeting up, and then also the wink ability. things I like about Okcupid are, I like the statistical matching. I think it's actually pretty good that it has. I like that, in a certain sense, because it's a free site, it gets a lot of girls on there, and it'll get a lot of really hot girls on there that wouldn't necessarily go on a paid site, which I like a lot. The other thing that I like about Okcupid is they have a filter. If you get like a paid subscription, it doesn't cost that much for the paid, that you can actually filter by attractiveness. And so when I have someone messaging for me, I don't want them to be messaging everybody because I don't want a flooded inbox. But what I want them to do is message a lot of people and just build volume. And so by having an attractiveness filter, I'm able to select only girls that were rated 5-star attractiveness. So I'm immediately selecting down who I'm starting to talk to. So that makes it really easy for the copy and paste strategy that I tend to employ. So I really like that. Also, I found that I think the girls on Okcupid tend to be, on average, seem to be fairly smart. Or maybe that's just that the girls that I get matched with are very smart because I'm pretty intellectual. I don't know. But the girls I've dated off there have been quite smart, which I like. Okay, how to differentiate your profile from others. That's super, super, super important. And it's maybe the most important single thing that you can do, okay? And what I will tell you here is don't hold back. Don't hold back at all. Be willing to say and do anything. Be willing to be inflammatory. Be willing to offend. So one of the first profiles, this is from years and years ago, but one of the first profiles that, if I can remember, I'll try and remember off the top of my head. This is from a long time ago, but it was like, if you're dumb, don't bother texting me. If you're overweight, drop the fork and get lost. If you have, I don't know, some other negative thing, forget about it. But if you're hot, cool, and alive, let's talk. Something like that. And this was like years and years ago. This was actually on like hotornot.com from like year 2001 or something like that. It was a super short little blurb, but it was one of the first online profiles that ever got me consistent results. And why? Because it was a little offensive. It definitely got their attention, and it definitely challenged them. It made them go, oh my God, who the fuck is this guy? Right? And some girls get turned off by that. I got a lot of very negative messages. I probably got a lot of girls that didn't message me back, but I did get a lot of responses. Some negative, some positive. And the negatives I eventually learned to turn around and turn into positives. But for the, it basically just got a response, because most guys' problem with online is that a typical girl is getting hit up like just thousands of times pretty much. Like one example, there was a girl who I was dating a couple years ago, and she had an online profile from back in the day that she'd never gone on. Like she hadn't gone on it for a really long time. And so I logged on to one of my my online things when I was just visiting her as a friend. And basically I logged onto her profile instead of mine for like 5 minutes. From being logged on for 5 minutes, she got 100 messages. 100 messages from being logged online for 5 minutes. So that's what you're dealing with. So it doesn't matter how cool or classy what you're putting across is if it doesn't get read. And if she's getting 100 messages per 5 minutes, you're just not getting read. So that's the problem you're dealing with. That's what you're up against. And so with that in mind, just stand out more than anything else. So don't be afraid to be inflammatory, okay? Some lines that I've put as starters or headlines for profiles, do not read this profile. I've put, on my current one, I think I have life's too short to dance with fat chicks. I've put like, you don't deserve me. I put all kinds of stuff like that, right? Anything that can get their attention. And any sort of clever, cute, offensive stuff that you can think of is really, really good as well. I know one profile that I did that did really, really well. I took the show Californication, and I basically looked at quotes from Hank Moody from the various episodes. And I took the ones that I liked, the ones that seemed to resonate with my sense of humor. So again, I'm still conveying my own personal personality. And then I modified them slightly, but took the kernel of the joke and the kernel of his personality and put it through in the profile. And so it had things in it that were extremely offensive, like I may not go down in history, but I will go down on you. I think that a morning of awkwardness beats a night of loneliness. Things like that are just very, 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 very polarizing. In fact, that line, life's too short to dance with fat chicks, that's from Californication as well. So that's one that I do. Or if you pick any sort of archetypal hero, any archetypal like asshole, cool male, some comedians would be good for that, like movie characters, whatever. Anything that you can get as examples to go with that resonates with your sense of humor will probably be pretty good. Or just if you happen to say things that are inflammatory, or you happen to say things that get a good response with a girl live, be like, just take note of that and use that in your online profile. I've done that a lot, where I'd say something live and then I'd put it out on my Twitter, which, by the way, quick plug, it's twitter.com/rsdtodd. But I'd put it out on my Twitter and then I'd think about it and then I'd be like, hey, that was pretty good, I'll try it online. So I've done a lot that way as well. So that's kind of how to go about the most basic part of building a profile, which is to make sure to get their attention and make sure to frame it properly. Frame it as you are the selector, all right? Now, you'll know you did a good profile. In fact, I recommend starting with a profile first when you get online. You'll know you did a good profile when you can use the wink or show interest feature on a site without sending messages and start to get some responses. You might not get responses from the hottest girls necessarily. You might not get as many responses as you'd like, but you'll know you're on the right track when you start getting some responses. Don't get online and start sending emails to all the different girls and being super personal and having your profile suck. The profile is you online. That's the most important thing you can do. So get that right first and just test it. Test one element and another and test them one at a time. Don't test them all at once. So the profile, I cannot emphasize to you how incredibly important that part is. Other things that are good to include in the profile, try and have something where you put what you're looking for in a girl. That again identifies you as a selective man, as opposed to just like a lame chode who will take anything. And then the last thing I'll say about the profile, for now at least, is avoid cliches. Don't say things like, I'm just as happy going out on the town as I am snuggling up with a movie on my couch. Or I like to work hard and play hard. Anything that's cliche, she has read 1,000 times before. Just thumb through some profiles. Like, take a look at some male profiles and see what they're saying. See what they're writing. And actually, as you look through, what you'll probably see, you'll look at them and be like, wow, these guys are actually really good guys. These guys are, these guys are really, really good guys. These guys would be great for girls. But they're just not getting it because they all look the same. They all are trying to be the same great guy, which is the type of great guy that society would approve of, all right? It's okay to be disapproved of. In fact, if your profile if you're not getting occasional really bad responses, there's a serious problem with your profile, okay? You need to be getting bad responses as well as good, and you need to learn to turn those around. Or, well, actually you don't need to, but it's good to learn to turn those around because some of those will be some of the best girls you'll ever find. We'll start out with bad profiles. I know that one girl that I started out with, her first response was no thanks. Like literally no thanks. And then I was able to turn that around, get a number, and push it forward. So it definitely can be done. And that's pretty much the worst, other than silence, is pretty much the worst response you can get is no thanks. So it can definitely be done. In terms of sparking messages or sparking interest with messages, how to write a good first message, that sort of stuff. Again, you want to get their attention. So I'll throw out a few that I used to use off the top of my head. Let me think. What did I used to use? Drawing a blank. Okay, let's see. I want to be more than an unread message in your inbox. Swoon, I'll catch you. Let's go for sushi. How about if we go for sushi and then I devour you? One I came up with recently was, I just stared at your profile for 30 seconds trying to come up with the exact phrase to make you say, take me now, daddy. I've never worked this hard for a girl. Just any of this kind of stuff. It's very much like just to get their attention. And a lot of the responses you'll get to that will be very negative. You get a lot of, does this line ever work for you? Have you ever gotten, like, has a girl ever responded positively to that? Who do you think you are, Mr. Cocky? No thanks. I would never say that kind of stuff. But the point is, it's an answer. And what you need to do is learn how to pass shit tests via text, learn how to pass shit tests via online, and be able to turn those around, because you are going to definitely get shit tests a lot. Like, you'll get the occasional girl who's super down, but mostly you're going to get shit tests. And the girls who are super down usually won't be the hottest girls, and they'll usually also be giving their numbers to a million guys online. So even if you get their number, it's really hard to set dates with them. So you need to learn to pass those shit tests. Let's see. What kind of messages do you send when the girl stops? Hang on. Let me see if I can scroll down and see this. When the girl stops responding to you. Okay. So how to deal with silence. There's basically 4 types of responses you can get via text or online. And those are silence, shit test, logical question or logical communication, and then overt positive or an attempt to make plans. Those are basically the 4 different things you can get. Okay? So silence is one of those. And there are 2 responses to silence. First of all, if you're getting silence out of nowhere, like you respond and you just get nothing back, or sorry, you make a first attempt via text or first message online and you get nothing back, then what you need to do there is what I call ping value into the void. And that is just send out something cool, cute, amusing, like a fun, fun, flirty thing that doesn't require a response. So that if you don't get a response, you can still send it again and again, or you can send another, sorry, not the same thing, but you can send another one and another one until she eventually pops. And if those messages are good enough, generally, eventually they will pop, and almost never will they say like, hey, never contact me again. If the messages are shitty, they'll say, hey, never contact me again, and almost none of them will pop. So that's what you do there. And in terms of pinging value into the void, what that means is, in terms of format, think like Twitter update or Facebook update, something like that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like the wittiest thing in the world. It just has to be something offering value and asking for nothing. Like one that I put out that was surprisingly good was just drove past a store that sells only, quote, used and out of print cookbooks, WTF, right? That's not like the funniest thing, not the craziest thing, but it's just a little cute observation from life that that worked. Or another one that I'll do, this is a text messaging thing, but it's similar to online, is I would send like a cute, funny picture. Just send them a cute, funny picture. So stuff like that, that's just pinging value into the void and not trying for a response seems to be really, really good. I know Brad used to have one where it's like sipping champagne by the pool, God, I love my life, or something like that, or I don't know, something like that. But just like putting out that you're happy, you're having a good life, something cool just happened, something interesting just happened, etc. Another one, when I was traveling, I said, just saw a 50-year-old lady in a bedazzled hoodie that says, love kills slowly, LOL, welcome to Singapore, right? So just like random stuff like that just conveys that you have cool, interesting things going on in your life, you're just sharing it and you're not trying to make plans. You don't put out like some fun, cool thing and then say, so, want to hang out? That's trying for too much. You're trying to escalate. You're clearly have an outcome there and it won't work. The point is you're offering value and not asking for an outcome. And the reason this works is that essentially at any point in the relationship or in the interaction, there's a certain amount you can get away with. There's a certain amount of history, a certain amount of like whether or not they will respond to you. And you can't expect them to respond to you if they don't know you. You can't expect to ask for a lot and get a positive reaction if they don't know you. So you have to work with what you have. It's what I call social capital. When you start meeting a stranger, you have very little social capital, you have very little reason to stay and talk to you. Once you've been in a relationship with someone, you have tons of social capital, so you can ask them for all kinds of stuff. So at the start, when you're getting silence, don't ask for much. Now, if you're messaging with a girl and she's been messaging back and forth with you, and then she goes silent, now what I recommend you do is actually call her out on her silence, okay? Actually call her out on it. Because think to yourself, if you're messaging with your good friend who you feel entitled to, who you feel you really deserve his attention, and they went silent, you wouldn't just do nothing. You'd be like, what the fuck? Or you'd be like, ... question mark. Or you'd be like, bro, what's up? Or like, are you gonna answer? Something like that. And the reason guys don't do that with girls is that they don't feel entitled. They don't feel worthy to the girl. They feel like with the girl's doing them a favor, talking to them, as opposed to the guy doing the girl a favor, as opposed to it being a mutually good interaction, right? So you should view it the same way and be very willing to call them out. However, you can't call them out in a reactive way, and you can't call them out in a way that seems needy or like begging, okay? So examples of some of those things that I'll do are, one is like, dear diary, cute girl vanished, should I send search party? Or another one is, oh my God, does this mean I'm gonna have to go back to being single on Facebook now? Stuff like that. Another one is just ... question mark, right? ... question mark, or WTF. Or another one, if you're, this is for phone game more so, but it illustrates the principle, is if you call the girl and she doesn't pick up, especially like if she just texted you, you call her and she doesn't pick up, then you'd be like, WTF, answer your phone, right? Stuff like that works. So any of those are really, really good. One other one that one of my assistants came up with recently is, if you're this quiet during sex, it's gonna be awkward. So any of those kind of things that are kind of cute, funny, like messing around, but call out the fact that she's being weird and awkward, and call out the fact that responding would be the normal thing to do, are really, really effective. But that only works if you have a history of her responding. It doesn't work out of the blue. It doesn't work off of no response, right? So you need that history first. So that's how you deal with silence. Let's see. Any thoughts about the time between messages in Facebook game? I would say that most of the time in any kind of game, first of all, I'll be fully open with you that I have not done a whole lot of Facebook game. I don't tend to mess around with it. I tend to mess around with online dating sites, or I tend to mess around with phone numbers. The only time I ever get Facebooks from girls is if they're foreign and don't have a phone number, typically, because I just feel like the phone number is a more intimate thing, so I usually skip over the Facebook thing. But messaging in any medium, typically you want to be messaging ideally about as frequently or a little bit less than they are. So the issue you run into is if they're taking a day to get back to you and you take like 5 minutes, that looks pretty lame and needy. And that can happen every now and again, but if it happens over and over again, it looks like you're just like at their beck and call responding to their text. So you don't want to be doing that. So like if it takes them an hour, take you an hour. If it takes them 20 minutes, take you 20 minutes. But don't be anal retentive about it. Just get it approximately right. And it's okay occasionally to be fast. The whole thing you want to avoid is just being that guy that's always getting back right away when they never are. You want to avoid that. So rule of thumb, keep kind of the same amount of time as they are, if not more, so that you're not being super, super needy. That said, don't be stupid about this. Like if you're trying to make plans for a particular night and they text you, or text you or message you or whatever, and then it's 5 hours to the thing, don't wait 4 hours to message them back. Right? Just get back on that and actually do what's practical too. There's what's right and then there's what's effective. And a lot of times in online game or in text game or any of that kind of stuff, there's also what's effective. Like for example, I travel a lot. And so a lot of times if I'm messaging a girl when I'm back in a city from like online, I have a shortened time frame, so I have to kind of squeeze it all in quickly, and I have to do things that are less than optimal because you have to adjust to the circumstance. So always play the circumstance as well as just trying to play by rules. There's never like hard and fast rules. Let's see. Any significance in messaging a girl when she's online or offline? Honestly, I think that if you are at the point where you're considering that, there's a problem with what you're doing. Because if that's the case, you're getting way too invested in any one particular girl. I would say yes, if the girl's online, she's more likely to give you that immediate response, slightly. But then again, if she's online, that oftentimes means that she's in the process of messaging someone else, or that she's like in the middle of that, or even that she's about to go on a date and is checking like logistics or something, who knows. So it can actually play against you too. But the fact of the matter is you should be, if you're doing online, the point of online game is not to like pick out that one special girl and just go after her. The point of online game is to try and just generate abundance for yourself, try and generate a lifestyle, or try and generate a steady stream of girls. If you try and go after that one particular girl online, unless you have like insane game, it's probably not going to happen. Most girls won't even respond to your messages. Even a great opening line, like the best openers, if I actually read the girl's profile and really look at it and really like intensely study and try and write exactly the best thing I can, maybe I'll get like a 30% response rate. Maybe. Like for the first message. Once the first message is there, yeah, then I'll get a number like maybe like 70-80% off of a first response. But for that first message, like a 30% response rate is really, really high. So if you're singling out one girl and trying really hard to just get that one girl and like optimize that, you're kind of wasting your time. And if you have good enough game to do that online, you probably have good enough game to do that live, and you probably would be spending your time better that way anyway. But online is great for convenience. It's great for generating leads when you aren't in the city yet or when you're traveling around a lot. It's great for generating abundance. It's great for just getting a lot of dates to practice dating. It's great for all those kind of things. It's also great for having sort of like a passive income, so that even if you don't go out for a while, you still have girls you can call. You still have like a steady like kind of in the background. You always know that you're not scarce in terms of where your next lay is coming from. So those are all great things about online, but I wouldn't, if you're micromanaging it to the point where you're like, is the girl online or not online when I message her, I think you're way overanalyzing it. And especially if you've messaged back and forth with her a couple times, she should be into the interaction enough that it shouldn't really matter. Like she should be actually hoping for your responses rather than you just having to catch her online. So those are my thoughts on that. As far as like actually split testing responses for whether they're online or not, I haven't bothered to test that. I haven't bothered to go that deep, so I couldn't tell you a mathematical exact answer. But my intuition is if you're focused on that, you have a problem. Let's see. How do you deal with girls who are, hang on. I'll do what are the best kind of photos to post, just because it's again online-ish. Basically, when it comes to photos, I think there are two types of photos that are good. I think number one is a photo that just physically makes you look good. is good. So if it just happens to be a photo that like physically makes your face look at its best, that's always really good. A photo that physically makes your body look at its best, that's really good. So those are good things. And for that, I would suggest actually, if you're gonna do it seriously, take a minute and just go get a professional photo taken. It can't hurt and it doesn't cost that much, or a few professional photos taken. And that's actually what I've done for mine, is I mostly have just pro photos. I don't have a lot of impromptu stuff. However, if you have impromptu stuff that makes you look cool, makes you convey a cool lifestyle, that's really helpful too. So if you play a sport and get a shot of yourself playing that sport, do it. If you can get a shot of yourself like skydiving, doing fun things like that, do those kind of things. Anything that conveys lifestyle. So that's the second category. The thing to avoid is what I call a UDA, or unnecessary display of ignorance, unnecessary display of incompetence, all right? If in doubt, if there's any doubt, like if you have like 3 or 4 photos, 3, 4, 5 photos, if there's any doubt whether to include a photo or not, take it out. You're better off having 2 good photos than having 6 mediocre photos, right? Because you will be judged by your worst photo. You'll be judged by the worst. I do that with girls all the time. I'll see a couple of photos and think she's hot, and then I see one photo where she's not hot. I'm like, immediately X'd out, especially if anyone who's done a lot of online dating, they have come to realize that people just generally don't look like their photos. So if any of the photos looks bad at all, they'll assume that that's you, like they'll assume that you're presenting yourself at your best. And so if that's what you got, then that's the best you can do. Now, you don't have to be like super attractive online, but it does help. Online is a medium where, I know we say like looks don't matter in game. Looks do matter online. However, if you're not the most good-looking guy, at least just take photos where you're as good-looking as you can be, where you're stylish and you convey good personality, and that can be enough, okay? So you don't have to be good-looking, but it helps. And if you're not good-looking, make damn sure that your profile really conveys a polarizing personality, that you're very clear about who you are, very clear about what you're conveying, and so there's something there for them to respond to. So that's it as far as the photos and the looks thing. The biggest thing, though, is 2 types of photos. Either it makes you look physically good, makes you convey attractive qualities, and no bad photos. If you're at all questioning it, don't do it. There are sites that you can go online if you want that'll rate your photos, or you can have female friends rate your photos, that sort of thing. And so you can always check that. You can also split test with different photos, right? You can basically, if you really want to check if your photo is good, here's a method, right? Put yourself in a different city. Like say if I'm in New York, normally I'd put myself in like, I don't know, Chicago or something like that, someplace where I'm not gonna care about the girls anyway. And then I'd put up one photo, and then I would wink at like 100 girls, and then just see how many winks back I get over the next few days. And then I would switch my photo a week later at the same time whatever, next week, put up the different photo, wink at 100 girls, and see how many I get back. And just, do the math on that. That's a really quick and dirty way to test at least one photo versus another, right? And then you can continually keep upgrading, continually keep adapting and modifying. In a certain sense, online dating is a lot more like marketing than it is like pickup, right? All the principles of pickup, convey yourself as an attractive guy, don't be needy, those kind of things are still important, but the marketing aspect definitely is huge, and that's why most guys, even if they're good at game, suck at online. And what happens with online, even more so than in live game, is that like probably 99% of guys get nothing. Like they just sign up, get an account, try and send out messages. They get literally 0 messages back, or maybe they get one like disaster, super fatty messaging them back, and that's like it. And then there's like guys like me that just basically can like triple book themselves because they've learned the system. But it's important to learn the system. You won't get it right away. It's important to be patient and to make yourself constantly improve. It doesn't matter where your profile starts. It matters that you're constantly improving. It doesn't matter where your messaging starts. It matters that you're constantly improving. So always be working on that aspect of it. Be working on means, not on end. And that'll do do better for you. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Every time a girl stops responding when you ask her to come out, how do you deal with this? Okay, so that's an interesting one. What'll generally happen when girls will stop responding to you is when you are asking for too much and giving too little. Okay, so there's this theory that I've actually put a video out on it a while ago, but anyway, the theory is called social capital. And the idea is that, again, at any point in a relationship, there's a certain amount that you can get away with and a certain amount that you can't. And if you're asking for things more than your social capital will allow, you'll get a no, right? She'll say no to you. So if you seem to be always trying to close and she's always saying no, step back and just offer more value and don't ask for anything. Have more conversation, have more time to let her get comfortable with you, and then try again. And then you can try again. If she keeps not closing, if she's respond like really consistently and well, and then doesn't close, then you can just call her out on it. And you can even do it in a joking way. Be like, oh my God, I'm so happy we can have this this phone relationship. Maybe we can have a text wedding ceremony. Maybe we can get the spokesperson for Verizon to be our priest. Who knows? I don't know. Just made that up off the top of my head. But something like that that's joking about the situation could work in that situation. But what you really want to do is be attentive to how much you're asking for and how much you are providing value. You want to make sure that you're providing enough value for what you're asking for. That's the general concept. Let's see. When is a good time to diss a girl online, if any? A good time to diss a girl online is one of two times. Either when she's giving you a shit test already and it's clever and spins the frame back on her, or when you absolutely have no other recourse, okay? There's what I call the burn it to the ground solution, which is nothing is working, there's no reason to expect anything positive at all from it, and then you just gotta try something. So there was a situation I had recently where I did a turnaround. I messaged the girl something and her response was, you're 31, that's a deal breaker, because she was like 18, right? And so then I texted her back something along the lines of ageism is up there with sexism and racism as ignorant ways to live your life, just want you to know what kind of company you're keeping. And so then she's like, don't know, don't care. And then I said, wow, never mind then. And by the way, also please drop out of school. Your lack of intellectual curiosity is astounding, right? Which is a pretty hard diss. But funny enough, it actually brought her back to normal conversation and normal reaction and got it turned around. Now it got a little bit more of a spike and then I had to send another message afterwards, just kind of laughing the whole thing off. Totally just kidding. Obviously, you obviously shouldn't drop out of school, but I just wanted to point out how ridiculous your stance was. Something like that. But in any case, it turned it around. And it was a situation where it seemed like it was absolutely impossible to turn around. So when do you diss girls? You diss girls when it's absolutely impossible. Right, somebody posted in the comments, Julian's line, such a slut. That's another one of when you're on the phone and you can't get a response from the girl in text, or when she says, who is this? Then you go, such a slut. In order to get that response, and then you have to capitalize on the response. Just getting the response isn't enough. You have to also be a cool guy and know how to turn it around afterwards. If you just get her angry at you, that doesn't get you anywhere. But getting her angry can at least get her talking, and then once you're talking, you can turn it around. So that's the idea. The idea with that polarizing stuff or that really hardcore stuff isn't that that's what's going to attract her, but it will at least get you into a circumstance where you're having real conversation, and then from that conversation, you can attract her. So that's the idea with any of that kind of stuff. Let's see. Actually, one thing I'm just going to throw in, not specifically to questions. I talked about how to deal with silence. Really quickly, how to deal with other forms of things that you'll get. If you get a shit test, if a girl gives you shit, the key thing there is just deal with the shit test. Don't try and get cute. Don't try and set up plans off a shit test, and don't try and ask logical questions after the shit test pass. So for example, one really great shit test I got online was, I told some girl she was feisty or whatever, and her response was, why feisty? And I said, actually, I was just projecting. I need a girl to have a little fire to her, otherwise she'll bore me. And then she said, can you keep me from getting bored? Right? So it's a pretty hardcore shit test. Can you keep me from getting bored? Okay, so a lot of guys, their responses would be, yes, I can, let's hang out. Right, which doesn't work because it's too try hard. Basically, she's giving you shit and you're trying to make do something too positive. You're essentially rewarding her bad behavior. That will never work. I've tried it. It just doesn't work. So yes, let's do it. Doesn't work. The other more clever way of doing that is, hey, why don't we find out over a drink? That also doesn't work. That'll work maybe 1 in 20, 1 in 30, but it almost doesn't work. So those don't work. The slightly better response would be no. She's can you keep me from being bored? And you say no. Now, in this case, you're keeping the frame, which is good, but the problem is there's so little to the word no that it's very, 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 very hard for her to respond to it. So most likely you're just going to get silence out of laziness, out of the fact that you didn't do enough, right? No, it's not like you gave up your frame. It's not like she thinks you're a loser, but you just didn't do enough, and she didn't like you enough in the first place. And so she'll just go dead off of apathy, just off of she's not willing to put in the effort to come up with something else creative. So the response I actually gave to that, she said, can you keep me from getting bored? And I said, no, period, return. Actually, yes, but if I have to, this isn't going to work. You need to have some hobbies of your own, right? And her next response was, let's meet up. So pretty good, okay? So basically that's the response that worked, because it's saying no, but it's also not just leaving it there. It's giving her a little bit something to work with, and it's actually conveying some more of my personality. It's not just a pure diss. It's a diss and then some personality, or it's a I won't play your game, but I'm not gonna like take my ball and go home either. I'm willing to play some kind of game. So that's the idea there. And the other thing that you could do with any of those is, what you could do wrong is start asking questions. So if I'd said that, no, you can't, or no, actually I can, yada, 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 you need to have your own hobbies. And then if I said like, let's grab a drink, that wouldn't have worked either. Because there I'm giving her, again, reward. I'm giving her too much attention. I'm making it too easy for her to respond. And so she can't get invested. In a certain sense, it's okay, and in fact, it's even good to make it a little hard for the girls to respond to you, because by making it hard for them to respond, you allow them to get invested. Like, have you ever gotten a message from a girl or gotten a text from a girl and not known how to respond, and you obsess over it, and then you get really, really invested in the relationship? Girls get the same way. In fact, girls get that way 10 times as much as men. That's why there's a website called hetexted.com, which is girls posting their, like, does he like me, does he not like me text stories, okay? The fact that that website exists should tell you that women get super, super obsessed with this stuff if you let them. But if you always make it easy, if you're always like, let's grab a drink, how was your day? At the end of your text, you're making it too easy, you're never letting them get invested, and you're losing much of the power of textual communication, whether it be online messaging or text messaging. So let that happen. So that's how you pass shit tests. So if you pass shit tests, just pass them. Don't add an attempt to escalate, and don't add like logical questions. Don't do it, okay? Next thing you can get, if you get logical questions, logical communication, just answer it as briefly as possible. Don't get in a logical thing, and then either add pinging value into the void, the same as you would off of silence, or you add an attempt to move the interaction forward, as in an attempt to escalate and move it towards setting plans. Okay, and then I'll talk about that in the next section, which is when you get an extreme positive, then you just want to try and set plans. And the way that you set plans is you do it softly, not hard. So you don't say, let's get together for a drink Tuesday at 7 o'clock. You say, perhaps we should grab a drink sometime soon. Because the girl can say yes to that with a lot less commitment. So she's much more likely to say yes. And then once you have that soft yes, then you can start working logistics and start moving it forward. So you're basically building this yes ladder. You're building this ladder of compliance and social capital, so that she feels like you know her better, and that you have more of an agreement and more of a shared sort of connection, as opposed to she feels like you're trying to force her into something. She should never feel forced. You should, again, be offering enough value along the way, each step of the way, so that she never feels like it's too much all at once. So that's how you deal with the 4 types of text that you can receive, or 4 types of messages you can receive. Silence, ping value into the void, or if it's silence after interaction, call her out on it and bring it back. If it's a shit test, just pass it. Don't try and do extra stuff. Don't try and make plans. Don't try and ask logical questions. If it's if it's logical questions or logical like content, just get through the logical part as fast as possible. Don't be evasive on it, and don't treat with the logical stuff. Don't treat it like it's a shit test. Realize that it's not a shit test, and don't overgame. That's the big thing there. Don't overgame. Don't treat it like a shit test, because it's a positive. It's actually a sign of interest. Okay, so treat it as such. And then if she starts like showing interest, obviously try and make plans. You don't want to be her text buddy or her online buddy and just go over and over and over again. You want to actually take it somewhere. So that's important as well. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's important. How do you carry the conversation from online to phone and to a date? Okay, so how do I do it from online to phone? Once I'm getting a positive, I'll say, perhaps we should grab a drink. And then if they say a positive on that, I'll say, cool, sounds great. My number's this, what's yours? Okay, now that's important. My number's this, what's yours? I found that if I say, what's your number? In like the close call ones, I would seem to get a response about a third as often as if I said, my number is this, what's yours? That was when I was doing copy and paste, and it was very formulaic. So the numbers actually like hold up, and there's actually some like similarity in the interactions. I found that by saying, what's your number, I'd get a response, or a number X amount of times. And then if I said, my number is this, what's yours? I would get a response like about 3 times as much. So very, very important. I think just showing that trust of putting your number out there, going first, it definitely will make them more likely to give a number. One sort of super advanced side note, if you feel like you've had almost no interaction with the girl and she's just being too positive with you, a lot of times I actually will say, what's your number, instead of my number is this, what's yours, because I want her to give me a shit test, because I want her to say no, and I want to have to work it through, so that when I actually get the number, she's invested in it. Because a lot of times the girls that are giving the number too easily, they're giving the number to too many guys, and they won't remember you when you're on the phone. So in that case, I actually will intentionally try and fuck it up, so that we have more of an interaction before I get her to the phone call. But that's just an aside. That's a super advanced thing. So that's the first step. Just say, my number is this, what's yours? And get it out there. Once you have the number, then the critical thing now is it's hard to get girls on the phone. Super hard to get the girls on the phone. So same as if you met a girl live and got her phone number, you want to get your number in her phone. So what I'll do is I'll send something cute, like a lot of times what I'll send is, so say there's like, name's Megan, or I'll be like, hey Megan, it's Todd. Look forward to talking to you soon. Please save this number so you can be appropriately excited for my call. Wink. All right? So just something like that that's like kind of like cute, classy, kind of like a little bit cocky. But it definitely just gets your number in her phone. That's the point, is get her number in her phone. And actually, I would find about 60 to 70% of the time, they actually respond back with like saved, or like something like haha cute, or haha love it, that sort of thing. Or even sometimes they'll double or triple text me, or like try and make plans off of that. But if they don't, at least you know you have your number in their phone, and you can call them up later. Usually I'll try and call them up like the next day after that, when time allows. Or maybe if I said it in the morning, maybe later that evening. But try and get them on the phone soon. But if you just call without doing that, it tends to be super, super, super awkward. Because like, they're like, you call them, they're like, hey, who is this? And you're like, hey, it's Todd from online. And a lot of times they're like, oh, which one are you? Which is really fucking bad, because it makes you, first of all, it makes you like feel non-special, and it makes it seem like it's very non-special, like a very blasé, whatever, lame interaction. But then also it puts her in the immediate frame of like feeling slutty and not feeling good. And so it's really, really bad. So it's much, much better if you can get your number in her phone, your name in her phone before you call, so that when you call, you're like, hey, what's up, babe? How are you? I'm glad I finally got to talk to you. And it's just much more friendly. It's a much better vibe to start with. Also realize that when you do get the phone numbers from online, these are phone numbers from girls who are overtly looking for guys, are overtly single, and really want to meet up with you. So you can actually go cut to the chase and set up the date really, really fast as compared to live phone numbers. Because again, these are people that have already made that commitment to themselves. So you can push a lot faster on the phone. In terms of the actual dates, couple pointers. Number one, make sure that the date is near your house. This is super, super, super important. I heard a statistic. I don't know if this is true. I do not know if this is true, but I heard a statistic that, I don't even know the numbers now. It was something like 80% of people that get together in relationships from online dating have sex the first night. And something like almost 80% of those do it without a condom, which is just alarming. But I don't even know if those numbers are correct, but the point is both those numbers were like high enough that they shocked me when I heard the statistic. And so the point is that there's a very good chance that with the whole online thing, there's this idea that, oh my God, I met my soulmate. Oh my God, we matched on these different categories. We liked each other on our personality before we ever met physically. And then if there's good chemistry, it's like it was meant to be. And so if that's the case, girls are sort of willing and ready to be like swept off their feet, and willing and ready to kind of really just go with the moment and go see what happens. So I've had a lot of really, really quick hookups from online. Girls, they show up for the date, they've never met you before, and then, 2 hours later you're sleeping with them. Happens a lot. Also, these are girls that are single enough and looking enough that they're online, so they tend to be actually in the market for sex. So that helps as well. But if you end up in a situation where you're not near your place, if you're like not near her place, not near your place, you're halfway in between, then a lot of times it's just not feasible for anything to go down that night. And then they have to stop and think and go on another date with you, and now kind of the magic is lost. Or another thing that can happen is maybe they're going on a lot of dates with a lot of guys, and who knows if they hook up with one of those guys before you get around to your second date. That can happen too. Like I know one girl I hooked up with from online, she had been on 6 dates that week. I was like date number 7 for the week, and she actually had double booked me that day too. It was a Sunday afternoon date. I met her at like 3 p.m. and she had like an 8 p.m. date, and I made her cancel that, and then like slept with her that night, slept with her again in the morning, and then talked to her, and I found out that she'd actually she'd actually been out on dates with 6 guys that week from online. So there's a lot of things that can happen. You want to make sure to strike while the iron is hot and make it work. Also, if you try and make plans with a girl and she's trying to like change the plans or trying to be really difficult in the plan making process, that's usually a red flag that she'll be difficult on the date, or that she's looking for you to like court her or like go way out of your way for her. And so usually I'll just nip those in the bud. Usually I'll say like, oh, it sounds like you're not that free today, or it sounds like you're pretty busy. Why don't we just do it another time? And a lot of times that'll get the girl to really turn around, because most guys won't do that, especially if she's hot. Most guys won't actually put her in her place, or won't actually turn down a date with her. So the fact that you will, a lot of times you'll get her chasing really, really hard. So that's another thing as far as the actual date. Ideally, if you can, the best place to have her meet you for the date is your place, but that's hard to do, especially if your logistics aren't ideal. So just get her to meet somewhere near your place is a pretty good fallback. If you do want to get her to meet you at your place, if it's like close to where you're going to go anyway, what you can do is, hey, I know a really good place we can go for a drink. I'll text you an address where you can meet me. And then you just text her the address of your place. You don't say, I'll text you the address of my place. You just text her that address. And then she shows up at your place and she'll call you or text you. She'll be like, hey, what, is this your place? You'd be like, oh, you're outside. I'll be right down. And then you just come out and whatever. And then you can definitely try and like bring them inside for a second, get them comfortable in your place, and then go out on the date. And that helps a lot with the eventual like closing if they've already been in your place at the start of the date. So those are little like tricks of the trade you can do. But the big thing is take dates on your own terms only, and make sure that you have a date where logistically something can go down. If you can't get it near your place and you absolutely want to see the girl, then get it near her place. But it's much, much harder to get invited into her place than it is to just walk into your place and leave her awkwardly standing outside if she doesn't come with you. So that's a much easier way to go. Does it make sense to post pictures with hot chicks like social proof? I would say yes, but as long as you're not being too blatant about it, okay? So what I say with any of those kind of bragging things, like I have a Ferrari, I'm rich, I have social proof, I date other girls, if the picture is good enough, aside from that, then absolutely. Or then it's fine. Or if the story's good enough to tell without bringing up the fact that you're with a hot girl, then fine, you can have the story with you with the hot girl. But don't do it just to bring that up. Don't make it so blatant and so obvious. I have on one of my online profiles, I have a picture that's a social proof picture. But what I did with it is it's me with some girls, but I actually cut the girls' faces just enough so that you can't actually tell the girls' identities, and they just sort of look hot, but it's not so blatant. It's mostly like it looks like I was just trying to get a picture of me, and it just happened that I like couldn't crop the girls out. And so it doesn't look quite so blatant as like the obnoxious picture of you with hot girls. So I think that's a better way to go about it. But yeah, the social proof definitely can be good. Don't overdo it too. Also, don't have like 10 social proof pictures. Just 1 or 2 and you're good. Don't try and shove shit in their face. Also, like if you have a good body, show it off, but don't do the like mirror selfie stuff. You know what I mean? Try and actually like have a picture where you're doing something cool, and then it just so happens that you have the good body and they have to see it, as opposed to you overtly trying to show it. You don't want to appear try hard in any of this stuff, if that makes sense. So that's a general idea on all that kind of stuff. What do you text after you're seeing her fucking her? It really shouldn't matter. If you're already seeing a girl, if you're already together with her, it really shouldn't matter so much what you text, because she should already be pretty committed to you. Ones that I've done, first of all, usually I'll leave it for like about half a day and let her text me first if possible, because that's the ideal, is that they're chasing you. But if not, then I'll say stuff like, I've texted... sure, use me for my body and don't call or text me. I knew you were trouble. That's one. I know a friend of mine uses, he'll send a little e-card picture that says, sex with you is so good, let's celebrate by having more sex. So that's kind of good. I know Jeffy has a picture where it says like thinking of you while masturbating with like this Cupid and heart. So like different stuff like that that's kind of cute can be good. But you don't really you shouldn't need to do anything that clever the next day. Like enjoyed meeting you would be fine. Like would be totally fine. She already hooked up with you. She already likes you. Why do you have to try so hard? Right? You've already got it. So yeah. Let's see. Seem to attract only factors. Let's see. What to text after you're seeing her and fucking her. Let's see what we got here. Don't want to have your own place. Visiting new city. Let's get the first message to send. How much should be tailored? In terms of the first messages and tailoring them, I would say that my personal results are if I tailor the first message and try and make it as good as I possibly can, like I said, I'll get about a 30% response rate. If I send a pretty good generic first message and don't tailor it at all, I'll get like something a little less than 20 as a response rate, but then I put no effort into it. Yeah, and then if I send a generic first message that is trying to move it forward quickly, I'll get maybe a 10%. But the thing is that the time and effort put in to the message matters as well as the response rate, and also the quality of the response. Like there are certain messages you can put out, they get like a really high response rate, but don't seem to convert very well because you have a hard turnaround afterwards. Whereas there are other ones where you put it out there and their immediate response is very positive. Like for example, if you said like, let's go for sushi. How about if we go for sushi and then I devour you? Any girl that says yes to that, you're pretty much already in a really good spot. I mean, you'll other girls will shit test you on it, but you'll get a lot of girls that are very on and you have almost no more work to do. Whereas if like your text was like, hey there, not that would ever be a good one, but just to throw it out there, something as bland as hey there and they respond, you still have to create a conversation, you still have to create interest, you still have a lot of work to do ahead of you. So there's something we said for the type of response you get to. And if you're doing something that's leading it forward, you're gonna get less responses, but you'll get slightly better responses. The best thing I would say with any of that stuff is field test it. Like try something, field test it. And where do you get these things to try? Check out good lines from movies, check out good lines from comedians, check out anything that you've done that worked for you yourself live, check out anything that if you say it to your friends, it makes them laugh. Try it and just keep testing it. And if you want to test and without consequences, like a lot of people live in small towns or like the online dating market, and like I know there's a difference between if I'm in New York versus Denver, Colorado. The online dating market in New York is enormous and you basically can't run out. In Denver, you definitely could. So if you're in a small market, definitely go to another market, like put your profile as though you're somewhere else and test it that way. So that would be a really good way to go about it as well. But the process of online dating, I can't emphasize this to you enough, how important it is that you follow the process rather than look for the immediate results, right? First, tweak the profile, then tweak the photos, then tweak the messages, and keep split testing and keep improving, keep trying things. And that's why I've gotten really good at it. And now I'm at the point where I can pretty much just write a profile from scratch and get good responses on it. But that took me years and years and years. Most of the profiles that I had results with early on at first didn't work. At first they sucked. And I had to keep tweaking them until they got results. But the nice thing is, once you get that result, it's like that little snowflake off the edge and it like starts rolling, and the next thing you know, it's an avalanche. So once you get something that works a little bit, then it just like builds momentum and grows and grows. And you can always, if you try something that doesn't work, you always go back to it, right? So the nice thing about online is that if you do live dating, every single set, it's a new approach from scratch and you have to start all over again. With online, every single time you tweak your profile, tweak your messages, it gets a little bit better. So it really is like passive income. It's really like setting up like a how to get girls business instead of being like a talented how to get girls guy. So that's the thing that I really like about online, but you need to respect the process. Respect the process online and respect the fact that it is marketing more than it's pickup. Okay, you can attract 6s and 7s. How can you step it up to the 8s and 9s? Here's how you do it. Because I had this problem for a while. Where I got a lot of volume, but they weren't the hottest girls. So here's a few ways you can do it. One, if you actually personalize your messages to the girls, if you're already good enough to get the 6s and 7s, but you're not personalizing your messages, if you personalize it to the girls, you can usually up it by about a point or two. The other thing that you can do though, and this is probably the biggest one, is make your profile more polarizing. Be more over the top, be more funny, be more dickhead, be more asshole, those kind of things, okay? For example, if I do a profile that's very much like fits the societal stereotypes of the perfect boyfriend and is also kind of cute and funny and just a little tiny bit asshole, I'll get a really high response rate with that profile, but I'll get a really high response rate from like average and just sort of hot girls. If I do a profile that's total asshole and total douchebag, I won't get as high a response rate overall, but I will get a higher response rate from the really hot girls, because you have to understand how often these hot girls are getting hit up. It's so much. Like online is the only place, this is actually probably true, online is the only place in the world where a 10 gets hit on more than an 8, right? Most of the time, that anyone from 8 to 10 like is a hot girl and they'll get hit on, period, by guys. But a lot of guys feel somewhat entitled to talk to the 8 and feel unentitled to talk to the 10, or will avoid it, won't do the approach, etc., etc. But online, there's very little approach anxiety. All I have to do is click or send an email or whatever. There's not that like massive stigma against it. And so the 10s are actually getting hit up a lot more than the 8s, like orders of magnitude more. So you have to stand out You have to stand out. People keep asking, by the way, this is an aside, people keep asking about Plenty of Fish. I know a lot of guys have done really well with it. I don't personally use it. I don't personally love it because I get a lot of interest from like randoms and girls that aren't that hot. And also because it's a not paid site, there's not a lot of commitment. But I know a lot of guys do it really well. And I think that actually, from what I've heard, it's a city by city thing. Like it's really good in some cities and really bad in others. So like I know, like for example, Boston was one place where I learned all this stuff. Like Okcupid is way better than Plenty of Fish in Boston, but I know a lot of guys on the West Coast have told me Plenty of Fish is good out there. So just try them all. I mean, it's a free site, right? Why not try it? Try the exact same profile on both places and see where you get better results. It's very, very easy to test this thing. Like all this stuff, it's extremely easy to test. Like, do you really need to ask me where the best site is? No, you don't really, because you can test for yourself by going copy, paste, send. Right? And it's a free profile, and just see what your profile gets. So it shouldn't be that hard to test, right? Again, respect the process. That's the most important thing, is respect the process, respect the process. All right, so there's a lot of comments on Plenty of Fish and various things like that. Let's see if we have any other ones real fast. Okay, how do you manage multiple girls? How do you pull girls from Facebook, etc.? Wow, a million questions all at once. Okay, so how to manage multiple girls on Facebook? Yeah, if I had a friend of mine that once said that his reason for not having a Facebook was he dated too many girls to have a Facebook. If that's the case, then either don't have a Facebook or don't have the girls you date on the Facebook. If that's a problem, then do it. Also, I think there may be privacy settings where you can control who sees what. So there may be a way that you can do your privacy settings on Facebook. I don't know. I'm not tech savvy enough to know that. How to pull girls off of Facebook. Honestly, I said earlier in the thing that I've never really done Facebook as a dating thing because for me, it's easier for me to just go out and meet girls, or easier for me to ping them online than to try and do the whole friends of friends of friends thing. If you were going to try and pull girls off Facebook, the guys who I know who do it well, they do a few things. Number one, they have a Facebook page that's incredibly good. Like they've actually spent the time to optimize it and make it look good in terms of having social proof, in terms of getting feedback, in terms of posting cool videos, cool pictures, that kind of stuff, to make it something that people really like to do. I know Jeff is really good at this. Like Jeffy, our instructor in San Francisco, he says so many crazy, outrageous things that get a lot of responses, and he has a lot of people that are sort of following him almost on Facebook that will respond to anything. So if a girl becomes his Facebook friend, they see all those comments, and that definitely helps. But I would say the next thing would be just to be a bit brazen and be willing to risk it. Also, if you're going to do Facebook though, consider the extent to which you are affecting your social circle, and consider whether it's worth it, which is another reason why I've never really done Facebook, is I don't really like to pillage my social circle when I can just meet girls outside of it. So sorry that I can't really do much with that. All right. Let's see. Don't have your Facebook searchable, etc., etc. All right, last one I'll probably take here. Somebody asked, okay, day 2 is in playing to win and drama. We'll talk about both those topics real fast, and then that'll be it for this one. So for day 2s and playing to win and drama, basically, we talk a lot in RSD about intent, freedom of outcome, and momentum, right? And one of the important parts about intent and freedom of outcome together is the idea of playing to win rather than to not lose. And so what happens to a lot of guys is once things start going kind of well, they just hope that they keep going well. They just hope to get not rejected. And the fact of the matter is, in order to have sex with a girl, you have to do more than get not rejected, right? You have to actually make something happen. You have to lead. It's very, very, very rare that the girl will lead. And so if you're not getting somewhere, if the situation's stagnant, you need to do something. And that something usually is just showing intent. It's usually leading. But in extreme cases, it can be creating drama. It can be really doing polarizing things. And so that's when you should do those things. Game, however, should not look like drama all the time. And it should not look like you being pushy, okay? All those kind of things should just be little elements that you sprinkle in when necessary. Most of I've been shooting hot seat film lately. I've been actually shooting a lot of new footage, and it's looking really, really good. I'm pulling almost every single night that I go shoot footage. But the thing with it is that a lot of my footage it looks like me sitting at a table with a girl talking to her. Even if it like was an approach in a club, like I approach the girl in the club, within like 4 or 5 minutes, we go sit down somewhere and we sit and talk and it's like a date. Or I meet a girl in the park and we go sit on a bench and it's like a date. Or I take her for yogurt and it's like a date. And it just looks very mundane. It looks very like calm, but the fact of the matter is you don't have to do that much. But if it starts stagnating, if the conversation is completely not sexual, if the conversation is completely friend to friend, you need to do something to juice it up to supercharge it. If the conversation gets boring and you're boring yourself, you need to do something to self-amuse and keep it entertaining for yourself. So all those kind of things is just sort of spice, but it's a necessary spice. Also, I would say in terms of playing to win and drama, I'll end you on a story, kind of. I won't tell you the name of this person, but there is someone who I know who is very, very good at pickup. And when they were first learning, what they would do is if the girls came over to their house and started getting intimate with them, getting physical with them, and then didn't sleep with them, when the girl was leaving, he would actually go out on the front lawn and spray her down with a hose on the way out. And I don't recommend you guys do that. I think that's a terrible idea. But the one thing that it did was it absolutely ensured that he would never have a second date, ever, right? Because once you spray with a hose, that's never happening. So by knowing on the first date that there wouldn't be a second date, he knew he had to play to win. He knew that it had to go down then or never. And so because he knew that, he would push harder on that date. Because he knew that, he would play to win, because there was no not losing. Right? He knew that if he didn't win, he would absolutely lose because he would force the loss later on. And that's the same thing with the drama stuff, right? It's like when things are hitting the fan and nothing's going to work, you do anything and everything to make it work because that's the only thing that you possibly can do. Okay? So those are sort of advice as far as that. Cool. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, one more quick thing that I'll mention is flaking. Because people seem to be asking about general theory on flaking. Here's how you deal with flakes. Number one, run a good set. Run a good set. That's the best way you eliminate flakes, is get the girl chasing you, get the girl into you, and get her trying for your attention. If she's pursuing you, she won't flake. If you're pursuing her and pushing, she's very likely to flake. So the best way you deal with a flake is to run a good set. The next best way you deal with a flake is what I call basically I answered this at the start, how to deal with silence, right? How to deal with silence and how to deal with flaking is pretty much the same thing, which is keep offering value and asking for nothing. Keep offering value. Just keep putting it out there and not asking for too much. And then once she's responding positively, and only when she's responding positively, ask her for something, right? And if you get a negative reaction, chill out, pull back, build some more value, and try again. And ask for something different each time. If you ask like, hey, do you want to go to lunch? And she says no, and then you try and you're like, hey, lunch. She says no, hey, lunch, no. Now she has to admit that she's wrong in order to see you, and that's not good. Instead, ask her for something different the next time, right? Ask her for a drink next time, or ask her for coffee the next time, whatever. Make sense? So that's essentially how you will deal with any sort of flaking issue, is think about the value first and then be persistent. It's being persistent in a way that's self-amusing and offering value as opposed to begging. You can't just be like asking over and over again, like, no, please, no, please, no, please go with me. No, please come out with me. That doesn't work. But if it's like, no, that's totally cool. Anyway, this funny thing happened, blah, 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 blah. Actually, you know what? There's this great restaurant. We should try it out. Oh, no, blah, 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 blah. Actually, you know what's funny? I'm totally going to the park right now, and I need some girl to keep me safe from all like the weird homeless guys. You're totally coming, right? And you keep trying it in a fun, interesting way where you're not asking for too much. Now it can work. Now it can definitely work, okay? Last question here. How many messages do you send back and forth until you go for the number online? My goal usually is 3, but it usually ends up being longer than that because 3 is probably my minimum. So usually it ends up being between 3 and 6. But I think anything more than that, you're starting to get into trouble because you essentially, you're becoming their online buddy and you're not pushing, you're not showing enough intent, you're not making go forward. All right?